Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's late night happy hour. It is a Thursday, Andy, I believe, after game four. I have really struggled with the math of these series, like remembering which game is which. But the Lakers do take this one in the Western Conference Finals. They're up 3-1, 114 to 108 in a spectacularly entertaining game.
Yes,
which
it
was. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about all kinds of stuff. Dragonfly Jonez, who is rebooting his computer, Andy. That is the latest update from
very
our
2020. Just in general, we're all having problems on some level. It's just 2020.
Yeah. So the thing to say, that random thing that happens when you you start your computer up again, it's like, oh, I got to update. So he's doing that, and as soon as that's over,
I had to replace my laptop like a month ago. Thing just died out of nowhere. Just absolutely died. Couldn't get fixed. Again, 2020.
I was about to say, it probably just looked at it and was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm out. I had a good run. I don't need to stick around for this. I can go. And I respect the decision that your MacBook Air made.
Yeah. I mean, look, given where things seem to be headed, I don't blame that laptop for just saying, you know what, it's been a nice run. Yeah. But double middle fingers, I'm out of here, man.
Yeah. No,
I'm sort of jealous of my old laptop, to be honest.
I'm going to find I'm finding my creator, Steve Jobs, in the sky. We'll be reunited. It'll be great. And that's just how it's going to be. So a fun show coming up tonight. If you haven't listened, if you don't listen to the Jenkins and Jones podcast, you should. It is a ton of fun. Particularly the last episode where there's just end-to-end Clippers slander, which we will.
I was going to say for this particular, the regulars, if nothing else, who drop by the late night happy hour, which is always appreciated. We've noticed not big Clipper fans. This last episode of Jenkins and Jones, it's for you. Let's just say it's right up your alley.
So. This was another night where, and I think a lot of people are concerned about Anthony Davis's ankle after the game. He turned it in the fourth quarter, and after the game, he didn't sound like a guy who was like, "Oh, seriously, no worries." He sounded like a guy who was like, "Oh yeah, guys, my ankle hurts." He described it as a little sore and tender, which is also an Otis Redding album, and this is just one of those things where you hope it's not a big deal, but let's assume that it's not. It was another one of those like AD nights. He hit his first 9 shots or 8 shots or something absolutely ridiculous. And they were hard, like mid-range and turnarounds and all this stuff. So like the renaissance of Anthony Davis in these playoffs continues.
He's been terrific. And it's funny because like he obviously did need to prove himself just because, Anthony Davis has never played for a team that had any true expectations. And he'd never gotten out of the second round of the playoffs, and he'd only been to the playoffs twice with New Orleans, and it wasn't his fault, so to speak. He hadn't been gifted a lot of great rosters, and there have been times where people have been injured, including Davis himself. But that being said, we'd never seen him at this level, on this stage, with this type of pressure and expectations. So there is a proving ground, but I think that proving ground can sometimes make it easy to forget the dude had been really good in the playoffs before this. Like the issue,
it's not a Lou Will deal. It's not a Paul George thing.
Right.
Where
the issue had never been that he hadn't been good in the playoffs. He just never hadn't gone anywhere.
But I just think it's just one of those deals. Like until you do it when it matters, like what you did when it. Like Damian Lillard's been awesome in the playoffs too, but he's never been in the finals. And Damian Lillard, despite being a killer who has sent teams home over and like multiple times,
he dismantled the Thunder.
Right.
Like the Thunder became a different team because of the bye-bye shot.
Correct. And he's done it twice. And so but if Damian Lillard got to the to the finals, he's been to the Western Conference Finals. He got to the finals, everybody like, well, Dame's got to prove it. Like when the pressure's on, like, come on, people. But like, this is how it works. This to me, like game 3, game 2, I should say, where AD hit the game winner. That's obviously, I think, the one that everybody sort of remembers. Denver really outplayed them for a lot of that second half. And then obviously they win game 3, the Lakers, other than that 5 minutes, were really thoroughly outplayed in that game. This one felt like the one that was kind of the good measurement of both teams. Like Denver was making shots, like, but the Lakers were just right there. Like, and yeah, when it matters, the Lakers are just that much better, which at this level is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Denver legitimately pushed the Lakers, and not that they needed to prove it in this round, because if you come back from down 3-1 twice, you are by definition a good team, and you're by definition a team that should be taken seriously. And we've seen the Nuggets are a nightmare to cover. You know, just like that combination of Murray and Jokic is so difficult. And you can see with the Lakers, like they are often scrambling. Like it's really, really hard. But I also never felt in this game as close as Denver kept getting it, and as much as they never went away. And again, credit to them. Nothing should be taken away from them. They are a legit good team. They're a team that, frankly, you should start eliminating now, because in a year or two, you may not be able to. I never felt like the game was slipping away from the Lakers. It always felt to me like they were in control, even if they were being legitimately pushed. And at this stage, you're supposed to be legitimately pushed. Yeah. Like, it's easy to forget, I think, because of the way we view sports, and I think because certain franchises are so dominant, and then also what we've seen in the super team era, this shit's supposed to be hard. Like, it's really supposed to be difficult. You're supposed to be pushed and challenged. And we forget about that sometimes. Like, Denver is supposed to be pushing the Lakers. They should be.
Yeah, everybody picked them in 6. Like, I feel like the entire planet picked Lakers in 6 in this series. You know, I saw the occasional Lakers in 5 and the occasional Lakers in 7, but like the entire world basically came down on Lakers in 6, which means like they're supposed to. I mean, and you know, good God, I felt terrible. I felt really, really terrible about making the 3-1 joke. Like, you know, you send regretful tweets and like, you know, at least you're not drunk. You didn't send, you know, there was nothing like offensive in it or whatever. Just like, that was just not a joke. It's just not a joke that needed to be made.
No,
like, you know, I'm not going to be the first one in there. I went back as soon as I hit tweet because I made a joke about it and was like, I just want to delete this. And it had already been liked a couple times or this, that. I was like, oh crap.
Well, then your ego takes over. You're like, well,
no. I just, once somebody sees it, you can't delete it. Like, if it's out there and people have already started commenting on it, you can't delete it. You have to own it. Yes, it wasn't like it was just like, and it got kind of, I'm sure, disappeared in the 742,000 other 3-1 jokes. But it's like, don't be that guy. And I was that guy, and I felt regretful.
Yeah, our friend Ramona Shelburne tweeted out to the effect of, there is no witty joke you can make about Denver has the Lakers right where they want them. And I retweeted.
That's certainly not the one I made.
Well, I retweeted her comment about that. And I said, and I was being honest, I tried to come up with the really original, clever spin on this, and then realized it doesn't exist. Like, I mean, like at this point, because the Nuggets have done this twice. So at this point, like, all those jokes were basically done during the Clippers series. Like, you at this point, it's just too well worn. You can't do it. Like, you're not going to come up with the winner. Like, just the one that's like, God damn, man, I never thought of that one. Like, just the perfect chef's kiss phrasing doesn't exist.
No, not for a joke that obvious that everybody's been making for, like, I made the joke, you know, early in the series, like, if you go up 2-1, you punt game 3 or game 4. It's like, this is not new, and I really should have done it. I should have been better, and I apologize, because there are times when, you know, a dumb joke is fun, and then there are other times when it really brings down the brand, and I think that's what happened tonight, and so I apologize. That said, you know, I'm not concerned that the Lakers are going to somehow blow this series. You know, no. AD's hurt. If something weird happens, okay, that's fine. Like, I mean, that can happen and can change a series and whatever. But assuming he's able to play, or even if he misses game 5 and is able to play in the other ones, they're going to get through and win unless Denver just goes completely nuclear. I'm not terribly concerned about that. And it's impressive. Like, the way that this bubble has come together for them, and like they're doing it better than other teams. It's not perfect, it's not whatever, but save Miami, who seems to be peaking in kind of the same way and figuring it out. The Lakers have just done it better.
Jimmy Butler seems to genuinely love the bubble. Like, I'm not 100% convinced Jimmy's going to leave. Like, when
he's going to be like at the end of Ferris Bueller, go home, Jimmy. But
I'm serious. Like, Jimmy Butler seems the happiest I've ever seen him in this damn bubble. Like everybody else, the Lakers are making the best of this, and I think they are handling this from a mental standpoint. I mean, look, I think the 4 teams remaining, all of them should be credited for the mental fortitude displayed, because this is not easy. And going through this is just difficult. It's a hard thing to deal with, like the Groundhog Day element of it. But that being said, I think the Lakers are doing pretty well with it, even though all of them have admitted the minute this thing is done, they're getting the hell out of there. Jimmy Butler,
they're going to walk straight from the champagne bath to the airport. They're not even. There will be no pausing in between.
Jimmy,
by the way, that charter is going to be insane on the way home. Because you can't take them out to a club and this and that. No. Just the aesthetics of it. You can't go out and party that night. All you can do is get on the charter and just get wasted.
Do you want to party in Central Florida?
I don't, but or if you did it, all you could do is reserve a room where nobody else was in it. So you're just, it's just you and the same people.
But even then,
nope.
No,
I'm
not doing that.
No,
but I think Jimmy Butler, if nothing else, he'll keep his room. He's eventually going to leave. He has to leave, but he hangs his hat now in Miami. It's not that far from Orlando. He's going to keep that room. He's going to permanently buy that room just for sentimental value. It's a place he can go when he's feeling down.
Up on it. Do you think Disney actually just puts a little commemorative next to it that this was the room? I used to live in West Hollywood, and down the street, I forget which old-timey actress it was that just opened a little coffee spot. Says me Marie's last. There was a plaque for the actress that lived in the thing at the end of the block, is a historical thing. I think you do that in the hotel for Jimmy Butler, and people pay a little bit extra on their Disney vacation with their Magic Bands to stay in the Jimmy Butler suite.
Unless Jimmy Butler's getting a cut of that, there's no way he's letting regular humans soil his room. There's no shot that happens.
Regular humans.
No, the man's loaded. He's got, just a shit ton of money. He's just going to permanently buy that room. He's going to work out some deal with the Floridian or whatever hotel they're in. He's just going to be this is Jimmy Butler's room. And when the Heat play the Magic, twice a year, no matter what hotel the team stays in, once things return to normal, he's just going to stay in that room. Every
time he walks into that resort, it's it's basically Keanu Reeves appearing at the Continental.
And John Wick, exactly.
Yeah.
Mohezy asks, do you think they'll put a commemorative plaque on Daniel House's room?
A different one.
Hell yeah,
it's a different plaque. It reads differently. Let's talk about Dwight, because Dwight Howard. You and I with who was on? It was Matt Moore. We were talking about Dwight's energy in Game 3, where he went Game 1. It was rediscovering Dwight, and the energy was great, and everybody praised him for the energy. Game 2, he turned it up in ways that were a little foul trouble. Okay, but it was still on the rails. Game 3 was bizarre. It was off-putting. It was uncomfortable for me watching 3,500 miles away. I can't imagine what it was like to be next to him.
No, as I described it with Matt Moore when he was on with us, because Dwight was playing like a possessed goon, as opposed to a guy that's out there specifically for defensive skills, because he's a really smart defender. He's got that size and athleticism. Like I said, he was like Mark Madsen as a serial killer. I was watching him just going what do you do? And it felt like he was just leaning so far into this irritant role that he had lost himself in it. And look, Dwight is prone to going overboard with blank.
Basically, Dwight needs a guy who just stands next to him and goes, dial it back. Dial it back,
Yeah.
Dwight. Dial it.
Yes.
Almost like that guy, that commercial where like the old guy teaches people who become their parents like not to do that.
No,
he needs that guy.
He needs some type of Yoda, like a de-enthusiasm Yoda, like just somebody who prevents him from going too far with blank, because I don't think sort of measured is Dwight's specialty. Like I don't think he's very good at sort of balance. And and he's so high with energy in anything that he does. And he seemed to be just also, he was legitimately in the beginning getting under Jokic's skin. And he just, I think, got too caught up with it. And as Mohizi points out, the TNT guys mentioned that Frank Vogel had a chat with him about that. I had asked Frank Vogel the day before this game, how concerned are you that Dwight may be losing focus leaning into this? And he said it wasn't a concern. But as I pointed out when I tweeted his response, I don't think he's being forthright. And it turned out he's lying his ass off.
I mean, when Dwight showed up to game 3 with a steel chair, wearing a cape, and
like a Mexican wrestler mask.
Yeah, it's just like it's a little much. It's a little much. He had the what do you used to call like the girl who used to be like Jimmy Hart, like the Mouth of the South. Like there was always the manager and then the girl.
He had his Miss Elizabeth with him.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of like he could have brought his own Python, which was another big heel turn move in like the mid 80s, 90s for professional wrestling. He's got like 8 of them. I don't think they're allowed in the bubble, but you could have brought one.
But this game though, Dwight, he didn't play a ton in the second half. And I think that was, I saw a lot of people on Twitter upset about this.
I didn't have a problem with it.
I didn't have a problem with it either. I think a lot of it was Jokic was in foul trouble. And if Jokic isn't out there, there's not a natural matchup for Dwight. But in that first half, Dwight was sensational. I mean, you could argue that he was the most impactful player in his own right.
How many offensive rebounds? I'm going to go back and look at it here, but how many offensive rebounds did he have in the first quarter?
I will look at it.
He was 5 of 6 overall. I have the book in front of me. First quarter, Dwight Howard had 4 offensive rebounds and 8 total in the first quarter. He was 4 for 4 with 4 offensive rebounds and 4 buckets, and all of that. Those numbers are related. Like that gets them. That's the reason the Lakers finished the first quarter up by 7, despite the fact that Denver shot 65%. Because Dwight got them so many extra possessions and finished them that way. And like, that's massive stuff. I just think there are times when people have to remember that just because a guy's playing well in a moment does not always mean that you have to ride him until it stops. Like Dwight didn't play 35 minutes a night or 30. Like when you want a guy to play with that much energy and that much purpose, 22 and a half minutes is enough. And you don't want to hit that point where you get a diminishing return for what you're doing. Sometimes it's best just, you got the minutes you wanted, you got the matchup you wanted, and get out. And I think that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, they got exactly what they needed from Dwight ultimately. And this first half, he kept Jokic he played a role, if nothing else, in keeping Jokic from being a huge factor. I mean, Jokic was by and large pretty quiet in this game. I mean, the foul trouble was an issue. He we saw this with game 1 when the Lakers won. You discovered a big way to try to shut down what Denver's doing is get Jokic off the floor. That game they had Jokic and Murray off the floor for a lot of it. And Dwight actually played a big role in that. In the first half, he drew the 3rd foul against Jokic, Murray, and Paul Millsap. Like, that's amazing. And, it was fantastic, but I think that played a role in Dwight just losing himself and starting to become, so focused on being this irritant that he wasn't actually being particularly useful as a basketball player.
Oh, he was harmful in game 3.
Yes.
He was not helpful. He was harmful. And you don't want to turn it. You got great minutes from him at the beginning of the game, and that's enough. Like, you don't need to try to squeeze role guys. I mean, Dwight at this point is a role player, and you don't want to try to squeeze too much out of that with such an energy intensive role too. It's not like you're asking, him to kind of cruise around and hit some 3-pointers and, no, I mean, that is a super intense thing that they're trying to get the guy to do. And, you don't have to try to get every ounce out of it. I mean, I think part of the frustration is you look around and Markieff Morris, who ended up getting a lot of those minutes, wasn't particularly good tonight. He ends up fouling out with, 1 bucket, 4 rebounds in 17 and a half minutes. So you compare the two guys, and Dwight was obviously more effective. But, who else? Kuz wasn't all that great tonight. So I think fans kind of look around, or people look around and say, well, that guy, the other options just weren't that good. So why not keep riding Dwight? I think a lot of it is just, it's defense, it's alignments, it's where you can put Anthony Davis, it's all that stuff. And like, they won the game. I don't have a lot of criticisms of what they were doing in the fourth quarter. The defense got better, as it needed to.
I think some of it too. I mean, when you see people reacting on Twitter, it's also because the game is so tight. The Lakers couldn't get rid of Denver, and the stakes are obviously massive. I mean, 3-1 is a very, very different thing than 2-2. I mean, the Lakers
3-1 is right where Denver wants them, Andy.
We already established we're not doing that.
I know.
Like, remember we talked about that. It's not happening.
I know. Right.
But I mean,
every one of them.
And especially too, like when there were so many times where it felt like the Lakers had discovered this formula to put Denver away, and then Denver keeps coming back. So then naturally you start wondering, okay, what's Vogel doing wrong? Like, who should he be putting in that would just step on Denver's neck and be
somebody would fix it, right?
And the answer may be nobody, because Denver's really good, and if they're playing the way they did tonight, which was by and large really good, and you've got Jamal Murray making just some insane shots.
Jamal Murray was doing absurdly stupid, amazing shit. Like, it was just like I don't understand. Half the time it's like, we were talking before, it reminds me of like if Fernando Valenzuela was a basketball player, because classic Fernando, he's not even like looking at the plate when he throws the ball, and yet it was effective for a while. Like, I don't like Murray gets some of these shots off on a lot of these turnarounds so quickly. I don't know how he locates the basket. I mean, like, that's what you can't defend that stuff.
He reminds me a lot in terms of just the herky jerkiness and the circus shots and the creativity in what he does. Reminds me a lot of Manu Ginobili. Like, I think there's a lot of Manu to his game. They're not the exact same players, but I feel like just the difficulty in guarding somebody like him, and like the different angles he can score from. And like, one of the things I used to marvel about with Manu all the time, there would be times where it felt like he was playing horizontally, because like his body would be contorted in ways that it almost felt like he was levitating above the floor sideways, like just doing weird crap. And Jamal Murray's got some of that levitating sideways weird crap game. And when he does that stuff and makes those shots, like, you're not going to be able to put Denver away with some type of magic bullet. Like, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because can you kick my ass? They're going to lose this series, Denver. I think I will, if it comes back to something else, whatever. Denver's going to lose this series. That layup he made was the reverse, whatever. I don't even know what to call it. Was one of the most absurd shots. People were comparing it to the iconic Jordan layup. What happens to that shot? Because a lot of times, one individual play, when the team loses, when it doesn't become important, fades away in memory or whatever. The flip side is, 0.4 is still a thing. As we talked about the other night, the Lakers lost that series, but 0.4 is still a thing. So what happens to that layup?
Here's what I think the difference is, because remember we were talking about this with Bill Oram, and he had written a piece for The Athletic saying that Game 2 buzzer beater by Anthony Davis was sort of this instantly iconic shot, automatically, like in Lakers lore. And there's a lot that goes into Lakers lore.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between
good lore.
The difference between I think 0.4 versus the Jamal Murray layup that you're talking about, or say Anthony Davis's buzzer beater, but the Lakers end up losing to Miami in the finals, let's say, or Boston if they end up coming back. The difference with 0.4 is Derek Fisher already had 3 titles. And he was part of a core that had already won championships. So that shot, I think, feels like it's attached to championships, even if it technically isn't. You know what I mean?
Right. They don't end up going on to win, but like win a title out of it. But the Murray thing didn't even win the game. That's what's like, but I mean, as amazing as 0.4 was, that layup is better. It's just like, I mean, yeah, you understand what I'm getting at. Like, it's a shame that might go away.
Well, it will. In the grand scheme of things, it's going to disappear into the ether, which sucks. I mean, it's an amazing shot, and you'll see it as a permanent part of Jamal Murray's highlight reel and his resume, and it should be. And his mixtape, exactly.
Jamal Murray mixtape.
But it's going to disappear to some degree. I mean, it just will, because it's going to happen in a Western Conference Finals that, in theory, Denver could lose in 5. Yeah. And just in the grand scheme of things, stuff like that goes away.
Yeah, it's a shame that play really. I mean, I know Lakers fans don't want that. That play needed to happen in the what was undoubtedly the expression of the night, winning time.
You know what it needed to happen? He needed to hit that shot in Game 7 against the Clippers. Timing is everything.
Yes,
because you hit that shot in a Game 7 upset series.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody remembers it. Then it doesn't go away. In the same way, the bye-bye shot by Damian Lillard or his shot against Houston. Those Blazers teams ultimately didn't go any further than where Denver's going to end up going, I think. But they were they were on the good side of a win. So that's the difference.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself a winning time player, Andy? I put up a poll. 80%. I mean, double check to make sure I got it right. I was a little surprised at the results. I think it's something like 80% of America. And that is the sample that I assume our polls are. 80% of America considers themselves to be a winning time player. 79.1%.
There needed to be a follow-up question. Have you ever been in a winning time game? Because some people may just be imagining themselves, a winning time player. For example, I fancy myself somebody that, if shit really went down, and there were a bunch of terrorists, things like that, or, what happens in Die Hard.
Exactly.
I fancy myself as somebody who could play the role of John McClane and take people out.
Absolutely.
I imagine myself in that role all the time. So I would answer that poll if you put out, do you fancy yourself a John McClane? I would vote yes. Now, if you said, have you ever been tested in your faith as being a John McClane? I have to answer honestly, no. But do I consider myself a John McClane? Yes, I do. Hey!
Now, here's a guy who's a winning time player. He knows what it is to step up in winning time. Dragonfly Jones. Thanks so much for working through the technical issues, man. That is the worst thing ever when you restart the computer and it's like, sorry, I got to update.
Right. I swear those updates happen at the worst possible time.
So far, yeah, we can't hear you. We're not out of the woods yet.
AK the bald Mark Wahlberg. Yes, exactly. That's
you know who he's aiming for. He's going for Jason Statham, and if you don't give him Jason Statham, he gets really upset.
So working through the tech issues with Dragonfly Jones, co-host of the Jenkins and Jones podcast, which is fantastic.
So funny. So much fun.
It is phenomenal. He's also a great, great follow on Twitter at Dragonfly Jones with a Z at the end. Definitely want to be following that. We'll work out these tech issues in just a sec. Big time Laker fan too. So we know he was excited about what happened tonight.
Can you hear us? I can't tell. You might need to drop out and drop back in. I'll text him.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, it's just like this is one of these things. It's like,
oh, you know what? Do we have to unmute him?
No, I think no. Well, maybe I can. Let's see here.
See if you can unmute him. Because
their mic, like you can't unmute your guest. Their mic isn't connected.
Okay.
Okay.
Mic is not connected.
Mom is calling?
It's 12:30 in St. Louis.
12:30.
Go
Should
to
I have
bed.
picked that up? She's gonna call you now.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
We're still unable, but Dragonfly, we still can't hear you. But I'm a little. What do I do? Mom just called. It's 12:30 in St. Louis, where our mother is.
She may have just watched the game. She may have been up
possible.
watching the game. Get Mom on the stage. There's no way our mother in this room. Yeah, I don't know if Dragonfly can hear us.
I'll text him, let him know. He probably might need to disconnect and then reconnect. We'll try that.
I'm letting him know too that his mic may be muted. DMing. But anyway, one of the things that I thought was really interesting with this game tonight is until like the last 5 or so minutes, it felt like it was shaping into this game where the quote unquote number 2 guys on both teams were going to end up feeling more impactful and making more of a difference than the quote unquote number 1 guys. Because Anthony Davis for most of this game was, I thought, more effective and more impactful, especially in the beginning of the game than LeBron.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There were periods where LeBron honestly looked a little gassed, and and sometimes I think that comes through in shot selection. It looked a lot like LeBron was settling, and then
there were a lot of jumpers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of jumpers, and frankly, a lot of them not going down. And then you also had Jokic, he got outplayed in this game by Jamal Murray, and it wasn't even close. But then, like the last, 5 minutes of the game, where you've got LeBron specifically asking to pick up Jamal Murray defensively. And Frank Vogel said afterwards, like, this was LeBron's idea. He went up to – nobody had been able to slow Jamal Murray down. So
Vogel's original plan, he talked about it after the game, he was actually just not – he was just going to sit him. LeBron wasn't even going to play, and instead they came up with a plan where he guarded Jamal Murray.
And that's why he didn't win Coach of the Year.
Right.
But,
they say LeBron coaches the team.
And then LeBron came into this game, those last 5 minutes when he picked up Jamal Murray, and he was terrific. His defense on Jamal Murray was the best I think we saw of any individual guy against Jamal Murray in this game. And, he bothered him on a few shots at the rim. There was one he got away with a foul. But, stuff like that is going to happen.
Absolutely.
And LeBron certainly gets fouled too. But he really, I thought, made a really big difference and ended up in ways that LeBron does because he's just that great. He ended up putting his stamp on the game. Like ultimately, and I realize I'm saying this about a guy who had a near triple-double. He had 26, 9, and 8 with no turnovers. Lakers only had 9 on the whole game, and 3 of them were for Anthony Davis. This was a big reason. We've talked about this a lot over the course of this year, Brian. Like, the Lakers are often a team that get really, really careless with the ball, often unprompted. And when that happens, they are really vulnerable. But when they take care of the ball, they're a really, really hard team, I think, to capitalize on their mistakes. And
for sure,
they did a great job with that tonight. And LeBron down the stretch made a really big difference.
It does give you an idea of how good. Jokic had the foul trouble, but like you look at their final boxes, LeBron had 26, 9, and 8. And Jokic had 16, 16, 7, and 4 with 2 steals and all. You look at that and you're like, that's a bad game for Nikola Jokic, especially given what he's been doing. And like LeBron, it's like, he was pretty good tonight. He wasn't great. 26, 8, and 9. I mean, that's our 9-8. That's the standard like the guy has set up. And, what helps and that is not a game. That's not a line that the Lakers can get by with if AD doesn't elevate. And I think that's the big thing that we've seen throughout the playoffs. LeBron has been very good in the playoffs, and you do worry a little bit about running out of energy, which is why it'd be really nice if the Lakers could get out of this. Nice for them if they could get out in 5. But, like that line, what was he from the floor? 8 of 14. He didn't have a great percentage. He finished.
He was 11 of 14.
7 of 18. So not an efficient
night.
Not an efficient night. If AD isn't really good, they're not. That's not a game they win. And so you're getting that elevated performance from Anthony Davis. And like you need your 2 superstars to be what they are, and they got it tonight from him, which is really cool. Yeah. All right, try it again. Can you hear us? Okay. No. Fortunately, we can lip read. Oh, and he's got a microphone and everything. Look at that setup.
I've got faith. I think
this is going to work. I think we can do this. You really shouldn't have updated your computer. The old version worked better. Oh, I like the old school King's hat. I remember that font.
Oh, yeah. A great font.
That was a classic era of hat making.
Can you hear us at all?
He can hear us.
Okay. You can hear us.
This is always the really tension-filled moment for the audience. This is the first time we've had somebody had trouble connecting to the show. Yeah, I just realized that. Johnny Berry says he'd have been a better contributor than Dragonfly to this point. I actually don't know if that's true, Johnny. And we love you, but I don't know. What do you think, Andy?
No,
I was in the part of that I feel bad. It's like, it sucks. It sucks for the audience because he's really, really just super entertaining guy who loves the Lakers and basketball. I feel bad for the person.
I know. Oh,
God, staying up late to do this and trying to he's going to spend an hour, messing with his computer.
It's better though than the position Keith Knight was in, the creator of Woke, when we had him on last week, and he was doing this show from North Carolina.
Yeah,
and having tech issues, and we felt terrible because they were genuinely on his end. Okay, we're trying it again. Can you hear us? We have a suggestion that you should just use the computer audio rather than trying to connect the mic. I don't know if you've tried that or not.
We'll take whatever sound you can produce. Doesn't have to be studio clean.
This is weird. This has never happened.
In the meantime, now people are worried about our mom because she called, and I don't want to call back because I'm not entirely sure she was really awake when she called.
No, occasionally she'll wake up and sort of half asleep and call one of us, and you can tell when she calls.
Right, because it's 12:30. The woman should be asleep. She's in her 70s.
No, we're not using Zoom. Granted, LA, we're using a platform called StreamYard.
Right.
Oh man, this is going to be
such terrible.
I know. I feel awful.
Okay, so how long do you think this goes? Not this with Dragonfly. I mean, this meaning the series.
I think Denver may have one more game in them. I actually really do. Because this series has been, game one aside, really tight.
It's 320. I think somebody put out the number. Since game one, it is 325 to 325.
Which is, by the way, exactly the way Heat Celtics have been. I mean, that's been super tight on balance.
Andy, 300. You said it's been close. It's been really close. 325 to 325.
No. I sure. Yes. I didn't know the exacts, but
right. Your instinct is correct.
And because of that, okay, right. Here we go.
I'm gonna shake some incense before we do anything. I'm gonna do a little dance. We're gonna figure something out. Everybody, send your positive vibes, and here we go. Damn it. Wait. I think I heard something. Or was that Andy?
No, I think that was me. It's faint. No, wait. No, that's faint. I think I do hear him. I think I hear you faint. This is so frustrating. This has never happened before.
What we need is an intern to run one of those tin cans over, just with a really long string.
See if there's anything.
I don't know if I'm trying to on our end. Like, is there something I can't mute him or unmute him? I can only mute him. Mute mic, unmute. Okay, let's see here.
Are you going through a laptop?
Name bans. I'm not going to ban you from the studio. That seems excessive. Kick from studio. That seems excessive. You're not doing anything wrong. We could do the Keith Knight, just have him call you and put you on a speaker thing.
We did that once.
We did that once.
With
actually,
Keith Knight,
it was surprisingly effective.
It was actually. It actually worked very well. Should we try it? Okay.
All right. I will. You want to text him your number? We'll text some numbers here.
I'm gonna DM you my number. Hang on one sec.
This is like enterprising. Like, is the mic plugged in? Yes, John Tyson. I think we tried that already. Come on, give him a little credit. Man has his own podcast, for God's sakes. Is the mic plugged in? I disagree with this. Series has been close since game one blowout. Is kind of a pick and choosy stat. No, it means the next 3 games they've scored the exact same amount of points. It's been a pretty even series. That's the idea.
Right, which is why I do think ultimately that that Denver is actually capable of getting one more game off the Lakers. My original prediction was Lakers in 6, and maybe I'm thinking this in part just because I want to be smart. All right, let's give this a try. Hello?
I like how you answer that like you don't know who it is. Hello?
Well, okay, now can everybody hear Dragonfly? Well, you got to talk.
All right, turn him up.
Can you guys hear him?
You got to put him closer to the mic.
Audible.
He's still soft.
We've done this before. Oh, the old acting stuff. Okay, barely. Let's see if I can turn this up.
New phone. Who did?
We did that. We actually, when we had a guest on like a couple weeks ago, we were having an issue because of his Wi-Fi. So let's see. Brian, do you remember how we did this last time?
I think you made sure you had your external speakers. That'd be your computer speakers. And then you just held it right up to the speakers. And also probably shouldn't project his phone number onto the screen if you could avoid doing that. All right.
Can everybody hear now? Can everyone hear? Dragonfly.
Oh, you gotta talk.
Can you guys hear him?
Yeah, that's better. It's better. We're getting there.
Okay. All right. So how are you?
I'm good, man. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but I'm glad we're working things through here.
Excellent. So how excited were you with this win, man?
I wouldn't say I was excited. It wasn't, I only get excited about like 15, 20 point blowouts, games like that. I will say I enjoyed the ride though. And I feel like everyone was stressed out and I'm like, bro, I think your reaction to close, ugly wins tells you everything you need to know about how you feel about the team that you're rooting for. You know what I mean? And I'm not scared at all of a LeBron AD tandem, pulling it all off because we came from an era where I saw LeBron take a team with George Hill as his second LeBron to the finals. You know what I mean? So it's like, Anthony Davis, I am not stressing at all, but it wasn't a forward I was particularly hopping off my couch about, but winning ugly is something to definitely, I think that's something that people overreact for in the wrong side of the spectrum here this late in the playoffs. So I think winning ugly in this late is something to be applauded rather than something to be concerned about.
I don't think there is such a thing though as winning ugly. I think you either just win or you don't win. Like I don't. But you feel this viscerally in ways that I don't. I'm just like, because like you care more deeply if they win, frankly, than I do. But like, I just don't think you can be picky at this point. But yeah, you're right. Like you don't like anything that's not. But LeJethro's the same way. Like if they don't win by 30,
he's my group chat. I was talking about that edge every time the Lakers did not win by 20, bro.
Oh, we when LeJethro was on with us like a couple weeks ago, he said that I think it was during the Houston series, he got up and left like during one of the games, like for like 20 minutes, he walked out. He was just like, I can't deal with this. We actually asked him, like, because they ended up winning. We were like, we want to confirm, they won, right? Like you actually saw the final result.
Yeah, that's exactly who LeJethro is, man. He's like, this is the same conversation we had in the group chat. I was like, bro, I don't know why you're stressing so hard right now, but it is what it is, man. Like I said, I'm someone who I know what Ron can do, so I'm just enjoying the ride right now, dude. I'm not stressing at all.
Well, it's also like, how on earth could they possibly forget what Denver has done when literally every question between now and either the beginning of game 5, certainly the beginning of game 6 if they lose it, and obviously he's gonna be, you guys know Denver came back from 3-1. Are you worried about getting complacent? Like every question is gonna be like that. So I mean the element of surprise is gone.
Right. It's not going to be a sneak job here. Everyone knows that, Denver is going to come out here. I don't think any Lakers fan, any Brown fan would ever, disrespect the Nuggets in this series. I think everyone knew they were tough. They were going to be a tough out. It's going to be some tough games that were going to be played here. But I feel like we had like one game. Game 1 was the game where everything was clicking for the Lakers, where everything was falling. Everything was going their way, and the Denver has muddied it up since then, and we haven't seen one of those games yet. And no shots from Denver, but they are not a good enough defensive team to where I think that is the norm and just and a normality here. So I definitely think that the Lakers are probably going to have a ridiculous everybody clicking on all cylinders game on Saturday for the closeout.
Yeah, that's actually. I mean, it's interesting with. One of the things that really stood out to me during this game, Dragonfly, was seeing how down the stretch of this game when it's really tight, LeBron and AD as the Lakers' two best players are two guys that can really be true two-way players and versatile in the way that they can take on defensive assignments. And LeBron in like the last 5 minutes guarded Jamal Murray, and that was his idea. And we've seen AD guard every position in every series. As great as Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are, they're not stars like that. You know what I mean? Like, and you start seeing the limitations that Mike Malone has as a coach that Frank Vogel doesn't have. And every single option when you're in the Western Conference Finals, they all matter.
Exactly that. And that's kind of the same thing that I was kind of LeJethro in the group chat. I was like, bro, during all these times when LA's back is against the wall, they come out swinging and they do not, and they win that round. You know what I mean? And I'm like, bro, like I told him, I said, dude, the bottom line is this: it's LeBron with the best teammate LeBron has ever had. Like, stop trying to convince yourself that this royal flush that we have here is going to be beat by a 4 of a kind. You know what I mean? Like Jokic and Murray are ballers, but they are not, a hand that can beat, AD and Bron.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like this is all we do when we talk about the NBA is like, well, the best team with the best player. Like we give the MVP award to the best team with the best player. And they're like, and it is hard to conjure up scenarios where the Lakers don't win a title without somebody getting hurt or them just truly shitting the bed. Because it's not even like they have the two best players left in the series. They have the two best players in the playoffs. They've got the two best players left in the playoffs by a pretty good margin. Like it's not like Jokic is third, in the consensus third best player, fourth best player. Like Murray, Butler, Jokic, these are like top 10-ish guys, whatever. But AD and LeBron are like clearly 2 or 3 of the 4 best players in basketball. Like that should win you a title at this point.
Right. And Draymond said it himself tonight. He said, y'all overthink basketball. It's a simple game. And I think that kind of plays back to this, like I said, we're talking about, I don't get, being more upset at an ugly win than you're happy at a ugly win this late in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And bro, it's Bron and AD, man. Like I said, we saw Bron the last time Bron was in the playoffs. He took George Hill to the finals. You know what I mean? So like, what are we even pressing the panic button about here, man?
You know what? I don't even consider tonight an ugly win. I mean, like, I think both teams were just playing well. Like, Denver's good. Like, Denver's actually a good team.
Jamal Murray was doing Jedi shit tonight. I mean, like, that was impressive.
Yeah. Jamal Murray was out there playing horse, and he was dropping everything he threw up there. He's ridiculous. But yeah, man, I mean, exactly that. Like, I think so many people want to see despite the blowout win. And if we don't get that, then that's when everyone presses the panic button and starts wondering. And no, that is not time. This is not that time at all. Like, I was more impressed by, the Lakers winning a grinded out game here than I would have been if they blew somebody out or whatever.
What did you think of LeBron's game overall? Because it was weird. We were talking about this before you were able to get in, connect with us. He ended up making this huge impact at the end of the game, and he obviously didn't play badly, but there were times where he didn't feel completely in rhythm. Like times where I thought he actually was looking tired.
Yeah, and Bron is he set the bar so high for himself. I think he had 29-86 tonight.
Yeah,
and it still felt like a game where Bron didn't leave it all out there. But, he flipped that switch where he wanted Murray late in the game. And I feel like even if Bron wasn't the best offensive player out there in the game, he still felt like the most important Laker out there on the floor during that stretch. You know what I mean? So that's the thing about Bron. Like, I'm not sure if he was bored or whatever, but I definitely don't feel like he gave his best tonight. He might be saving that until, Saturday or the finals or whatever. But that's kind of the story with these finals. Like, we haven't necessarily seen, world beat LeBron game in and game out, and he's 35, so maybe we both see that game in and game out from here on out. But yeah, that's definitely something that caught my eye too.
I can't imagine looking to do like professional sports at the level these guys do it at that age. Like, or Tom Brady, Drew Brees going out there in their 40s. Like, man, I hurt getting out of bed from doing nothing. From like nothing. Like I may have to see a doctor because I feel like I have a hairline fracture in one of my hands. I've done nothing. Like literally, I've been in quarantine. Like what the hell could I have done? Like, I don't know how these guys do that, but especially like somebody like LeBron, like basketball is so demanding and physical. It's insane.
So many NBA miles on his body, bro. He's got like 2 full seasons, of just postseason play on that odometer.
It's nuts. It's absolutely just insane. So when did you become a fan? Like, how did you end up a Laker fan? How did that happen?
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm a Laker fan. I would want to clarify that. I am a LeBron fan.
Oh,
I always liked Bron ever since he first popped on our radar, back in like 02, 03. I always liked the kid. I would think that his 25 straight versus Detroit was when I was like, yeah, this kid is special. Like, that was kind of the moment where he became my favorite guy in the league. And I've just been kind of there ever since.
Okay, because the reason I know I assumed that you were a Laker fan is just the sheer joy you've taken in the Clippers' demise. Like the last podcast you guys did, Jenkins and Jones.
Oh my God, that was funny.
The Clipper slander. Oh my. But it seemed like more than fun. It seemed personal. It seemed really truly enjoyed.
I mean, I think a big part of that was, like I said, I'm a LeBron guy, and like I said, we went up against the great wall of Steph, Clay, KD, Draymond, right? Probably the greatest team I've ever seen in my life. And now you're telling me it's time for, us to be afraid of Paul George. Like, no, that's not after what we just did. We had a legit reign of terror You know what I'm saying? With KD and Steph and Draymond and that Golden State squad. And anytime he's trying to be afraid of Paul George, I absolutely refuse. So yeah, so there might have been a bit of, personal animosity there because I just thought that was just so disrespectful to LeBron to think that Paul George was going to be the guy that needed his way down.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Like we were talking about how the Lakers, really ought to win a title this year. They should be the prohibitive favorites. Like you forget they need to win because the Warriors are coming back next year. Like I always forget, like Denver's gonna be good. Dallas is on the rise. And oh, by the way, the entire Warriors team, which was a dominant, like dynastic group, is basically healthy again next year, and they have like a number 1 pick or whatever. Like there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and they've got top 3 pick coming up too there. Yep. So yeah. It's I will say that I'm not as afraid of the KD-less Warriors, of course, as I am of the KD Warriors. But yeah, it's definitely time to get it in while you can because you got 2 of the greatest shooters ever on the same team. And shooting doesn't go anywhere. It's just all about getting your shot. That's what deteriorates. But we'll see what those 2 are looking like. So yeah, definitely something to be concerned about. Absolutely.
Yeah, the incredible Paul George slander that went on during that last show. It got me thinking though about how like when the historians look back on like the last 10 years of the NBA and everything that took place, Paul George is going to be this really pivotal character in all of this. Because like, remember, the Lakers could have traded for him, but they didn't want to give up Brandon Ingram or the pick that ended up Lonzo. And they thought they had Paul George in the bag to the point where they were clearing cap space. They moved D'Lo, they moved Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance. And then Paul George ends up staying in OKC, committing without even taking a meeting. Like Russell Westbrook is doing that party with Nas, like that. I mean, that's craziness. Then he ends up leaving in a year, demanding his way to the Clippers, who end up giving up everything for him in order to secure Kawhi Leonard. And then now everybody's worried that could be, or some people licking their chops, that could actually blow up in another year, in which case Paul George will go somewhere else. Like it's kind of crazy how pivotal he's been in all this.
Yeah, he has been extremely pivotal. You can say that he's the guy who ended the Russell Westbrook Oklahoma City era, right? Because
absolutely.
After that loss from Portland, and after Kawhi wanted him to come on board with the Clips, the Oklahoma City had a real important decision to make here. Like, can we win with Russ and PG, or will we never get more from blowing it up than if we blew it up now? You know what I mean? Of course, we know what decision they made there. So yeah, it's Paul George is a really interesting character in the whole chessboard of the modern NBA, and I honestly do not feel like he's worth all of the weight that his chess piece has there. Because
that was gonna be my question. Like, because if you look back, like if you're an alien and you come down and you don't know what this basketball is, but you read the history of it, and at the one hand you look at like the mountains that were moved multiple times to get Paul George from A to B, whether concerts or draft picks or whatever, versus like the Twitter chatter over what the guy actually did in big moments in the playoffs, it won't make a lot of sense.
Exactly. Like, I've always said that I was never high on Paul George because I felt like his market value made him a tier 1 guy when he's a tier 2 talent, right? Like there are very few, two-way players as good as Paul George in the league, like 3 or 4 maybe. And, you got to pay him for that, right? Because he's a rare commodity there. But I don't think he's a guy who you can latch your franchise onto and say, you're the Robin that's going to lead us, to a championship or multiple championships. Absolutely not. He is not that guy.
Well, you know what part of it is? Like he looks the part. Like Paul George so looks the part of the guy that should just be insanely good. Like,
right. 6'9" guy, super long wingspan, two-way guy. He shoots a three ball. Like, he's everything you want in number two, but it just doesn't all come together when it's needed the most.
Yeah, I mean, but he just looks like an athlete, like body type, like everything, and and he is really athletic. Like, I mean, it's weird, it's also weird because he has that reputation that's been building as a guy who doesn't come through when it actually matters, yet he is coveted. And he's still thought of as that guy.
Well, it's not like he doesn't suck. I mean, he is not a bad. He had that moment. That stretch, was it last year or the year before, where for like 6 weeks he was the best player in the NBA or close to it. Like, he's had moments, but you're right. Like the playoff thing, and I felt in a pandemic it was even worse. But the parts that really matter for being that elite guy, he obviously hasn't played well.
Right. And if your number two guy can't be a number one when the number one is struggling, then you don't really have a good number two guy. And Paul George is not that guy.
So now you had, I believe you'd wanted to get into playoff Rondo and just the appreciation of playoff Rondo.
I am not going to act like I'm a guy who was like, just wait till the playoffs, just wait till the postseason. No, I was hard as shit on Rondo during the season because I feel like when Bron sat and they turned the offense over to Rondo, it was ugly basketball, man. It was horrendous basketball, but oh my God, he's been ridiculous this postseason in the best possible way.
And you made the point. I saw you made the point on Twitter early in the night. Like, at this point, if you're the Lakers, you sign him again for next year and just let him. I don't know what numbers he made up, but he shoots like 14% and turns the ball over 9 times a game. It doesn't matter because all that matters is this guy in the playoffs.
There's been so many pivotal stretches that don't pivot the way they do for the Lakers' advantage this postseason if it's not Toronto. It's just been ridiculous, man.
It's a little bit like Robert Horry was, because during the regular season, he had this reputation that I know he didn't like because I've heard him talk about not liking it as somebody that would coast and, wouldn't really rev up until the playoffs began. But then once the playoffs began, like Robert Horry becomes this assassin and, he becomes somebody that's way better than his stats, or way better than the sum of his parts. And, Rondo's actually putting up numbers, but there's also too, like Rondo, because of his reputation, like he gets a lot of leeway from the refs. Like, he can get away with a lot of handsy stuff that other guys can't just because of who he is. And like this playoff Rondo thing, like it actually is a thing. Like he's demonstratively better.
Tom Haberstroh pointed it out. Like he's got like he elevates his PER more than any player ever in the playoffs.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know if there's a particularly I do not see a difference in the style of play from regular season Rondo and playoff Rondo. It's just like playoff Rondo sees things different, and the gambles that he makes in the regular season that don't pay off in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's just that veteran savvy. I hate to go all cliche here, but you need playoff basketball has a rhythm. There's an emotion to it. There's a feeling to it that's when to get in that pocket and know how the game is flown. And Rondo has that shit, man.
It was funny. Like I did an interview this afternoon for the ESPN affiliate in OC, and they asked me, obviously there's LeBron, there's AD. Who do you trust to be that third guy tonight? And I'm like, well, it's supposed to be Kuzma, but it hasn't been that. I mean, honestly, at this point, you kind of say Rondo. And I actually stopped and I was like, there is literally no way you could could have gotten me to use that sentence 6 weeks ago. It was like the idea that I trust Rondo in the playoffs before this thing's absolutely not. But that's where we are now with the Lakers. And you could tell, because when he was bad in game 3 in the first half, the whole thing fell apart. Like the team was off.
Yeah. And then he had that ridiculous fourth quarter where he was responsible for 4 straight turnovers, that he forced, that got them the LA back in the game. So yeah, man, definitely.
No, it's pretty crazy, but I mean,
ahead, Andy. Sorry.
I remember in the 2001 run where the Lakers ended up beating the Sixers in the finals. Ron Harper was on that team, and at this point, Ron Harper was like a shell of himself. You know, I mean, he could like barely walk, and he did not play much in these playoffs at all. But there was a game where the Lakers just got completely out of sorts and like out of character, and they were just sort of falling apart. And Phil put Ron Harper in this game. And I remember being like, oh my God, I forgot Ron Harper was even on this team. And Harper played for like 7 minutes, scored like 5 points, totally settled the team down. Then Phil took him out, and the Lakers won the game. And Ron Harper didn't play the rest of the series. Like, I don't even know if he was active for every game. But you're watching that going like, oh God, like that's what they're talking about with these veteran guys. Like why every coach keeps one or two of them around. And, Rondo has a bigger role than that, but it's like the same principle. Because, when he put in Ron Harper, I was like, what are you putting in Ron Harper for? Like, what's that going to help? And it's like, oh, he saved the game. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, I guess that.
Yeah, we fall in love with the flashy young guys, but you have got to be a special young guy to will your team to an NBA title. Like if we're talking guys under 25, there is very, very few who have, pulled that off. Like you're talking about the greats like Magic, you know what I mean? Like Bird, like, that 06 run Wade had, the winning formula in this league has always been you get you 2 or more All-NBA guys and you get a roster full of cheap, crafty, smart veterans. That has always been the winning formula in the NBA. So, yeah.
So where do you think this goes from here? Do you think they close them out? Do you think it extends a little bit longer? And then if it's Lakers Heat, because it looks like that's where it's heading, how do you think that shakes out?
Yeah, I definitely, I said it was going to be Lakers at 5 from jump, and me giving Denver 1 was not me disrespecting them. It was me thinking the world of them. But me thinking that this Lakers team was, just that much better.
Right,
yeah. So I definitely think the Lakers close this out on Saturday. I think they're going to have a ridiculous game where everybody's clicking on everything, and they probably, spank the shit out of Denver by like 15. But, the Miami potential final series, that's a series that concerns me because, if we're talking like, if we got the Lakers Sixers, the Lakers Celtics, it would be so much easier for the Lakers to game plan because I feel like, I might be oversimplifying shit here, but the scouting report is like, slow Tatum down, you got a really good shot here. And slowing Tatum down is something that is achievable. No shots to Tatum. He's a ridiculous guy, but he's not on that, you can't.
Right.
You can only hope to contain him stratosphere yet. He'll get there one day, but he's not there yet. You know what I mean? But, I think there's probably not a coach in the league who knows Bron better than Spo, an opposing coach. And also, they've got they just move that ball around so much. You have no idea who's going to, have a night. Like we saw Tyler Hero go for 37. We had 4 guys from Miami, put up 20 plus that night. So, I think that Lakers Heat would be a series that would definitely challenge LeBron and the Lakers more than the series with the Celtics if that were to happen.
I just think that there's a certain, like I said, there's a wild card factor that's there with Miami that I don't think is there with Boston. Like you're right. It's just you kind of know what Boston's got 2, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum on the wing. The Lakers, at least throughout a lot of the year, couldn't defend wings for shit. It's been a problem, but I agree with you. There's, and now you start getting into the weird sort of intangibly, you make, you get a tingle in your knee kind of stuff. They just sort of freak you out. They're frightening. Because they're different, maybe because they're unknown and unexpected, they just scare you more. At least me.
Right. It's kind of like college basketball. Neutral floors and
right.
The deepest, best coaches teams are going to give you the most problems. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what Miami is. They're deep as hell and they're extremely well coached. So yeah.
So I got one last Clippers question for you that just occurred to me that again, after listening to the latest Jenkins and Jones, I thought it was worth asking. Which was your favorite of the Clippers slogans? Streetlights over spotlights, we over me, we over me, or
I didn't hear that one. That is so terrible. Yes, look at you.
or driven not given.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Those are all terrible. Like we over me, driven not given. Like they were just looking for words that rhyme and just trying to tie the shit together there. But so I don't know. I think streetlights over spotlights is real bad. That's really bad because you can't even paint yourself. The Clippers as the team of the working class, the team of the Clips and the gut. Bro, nobody likes the Clippers. Nobody, dude. Well, y'all got like 14 fans, man.
Well, what I thought was hilarious about streetlights over spotlight, and look, full disclosure, we know a lot of people at the Clippers organization. I think they're a really well-run organization. They got a lot of really great people over there. But you can't be the streetlight team when two A-list stars forced their way to your team.
Yeah.
Like, you're no longer the gritty little underdog when, like, literally two of the biggest players in the league demanded to be in your franchise.
And you're owned by the richest owner in North American sports.
Yeah. The dude who went crazy during the whole Microsoft
No,
the sweatiest guy on the stage. That's your Ballmer. Yeah.
Like, Ballmer could purchase the Buss family like many times over, and they're loaded, and like their income is nothing to Ballmer.
Yeah. Ballmer's been ridiculously rich since like 1992 or some shit.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you lose the streetlight over spotlight. I wanted to get your opinion on those slogans.
Yeah, all those slogans are terrible. I really don't think there's anything the Clippers can do besides get out of Los Angeles. That will never be the Clippers fan. I think like the 35 years they've been there have shown that. Like, it's time to go forge your own identity, man, because that is Lakers.
Dude bought his own arena. Like the thing, it doesn't matter if it never makes a nickel. He's that rich. I don't think they're going anywhere. My last question, I thought of this while we were talking about Paul George. Like, you guys would both agree there's like a certain awkwardness about Paul George and a certain need to feel, well, at least it projects like a need to kind of feel loved and appreciated. I mean, I don't think that's unfair. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah. I agree. Like, got the stories that he gave the whole inspirational, hey, let's get back to the next season, speech after their season ended, and nobody wanted any parts of that. Like, that was the story that was just dropped. So, yeah.
Okay, so the only other guy that I can think of that is like definitely has gone through his career needing, that kind of love and adulation and appreciation more is Dwight. Just out of curiosity, let's say Dwight was in the same situation as PG was, and Westbrook was trying to keep him in Oklahoma City. He had Nas show up for Paul George. That's a good get. What level of like rapper or hip hop star or just musical act do you think Westbrook could have gotten away with to keep Dwight in town? Because I don't think it's the same caliber. I don't think you need to go as high.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think if Dwight got someone like, let me think. I'm trying to think of who you would want to appeal to Dwight with, because Dwight does not seem like a hardcore hip hop head. And like, if it's not on the radio, I'm sure Dwight doesn't like it. Let me see. I think with the way Travis Scott has been on the whole McDonald's run. I think if you got like Travis Scott to come out, the kind of Dwight talk, be like, oh my God, it's Travis Scott, the McDonald's burger guy. He's probably over
That burger, I think is, I've seen a couple of commercials for it, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, it just seems like a McDonald's burger. Like,
it's just a quarter pound of bacon.
It's got bacon on it. It's a bacon quarter pounder.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter, people were going nuts over this, and there was this big deal that Travis Scott had his own burger. I'm looking at it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure McDonald's has done that exact burger just without his name attached. Like,
right.
we've been through this before.
Come on, Travis Scott.
Like get something original to you specifically. Like it felt like it didn't meet up to the hype. That's all I'm saying. It just didn't feel like it was there.
I mean, but
real quick before we let you go, I wanted to ask you this just because you're a very, very good social media follow. Dragonfly Jones with a Z for people not following. You should be. What do you? And this is a really broad question, but I'm just curious what your answer is. What do you want out of social media? Like what's the appeal to you, and like what do you look to do with it?
I've been on Twitter since 2009. I want to say, right? Like I just hopped on there on some kill the time while I'm at work type shit, and I've been blessed to make a lot of good friends, real life friends off of it, and made some job opportunities and made some money off of it. But I never hopped out on Twitter like, hey, this is what's gonna take me to the next level. This is my trampoline to be famous. I was never like that, you know what I mean? So I'm just kind of, just like, women out there, like I said earlier, I'm just enjoying the ride, bro.
All right. Well, you got to go listen to the Jenkins and Jones podcast, particularly the last episode. But it's always a lot of fun. The guys do a great job over there. It's tons of fun.
Johnny says he feels like Dwight gets hyped to Old Town Road.
He definitely does. Yeah, Old Town Road is Dwight shit. I am positive of that.
If you don't mind, we'll do this again. You find another night that works for you. I know you got a ton going on. We'll find another night and maybe try it, properly, not through the speakerphone. We'd love to have you back.
Back here again during the finals, man, when everyone's worrying about the Lakers being up 3-1 in the finals or whatever again. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you. We appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Sure, man. Appreciate y'all, man.
Cool. See you.
Yep.
Andy, nobody will ever accuse us of being a quitter. That's for sure. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up and running on the scroll. Beneath it, that was Dragonfly Jones. We do the best we can around here. Sometimes, it's a technology-based medium we're working on, and technology doesn't always work. So, tomorrow night we'll turn it back to the NFL. Big week 3 coming up. So we get Mike Sando from The Athletic. Monday back to the NBA. Jason Jones. We could be talking finals, Andy, by that point.
I know.
Both teams could close things out, Eastern and Western Conference. Tuesday is going to be a ton of fun. Lana Berry and Molly Knight. Baseball, the Dodgers start on Wednesday. Baseball playoffs start Wednesday.
Crazy. I'm so caught up in this.
I know.
Getting this other
way to find. Yeah. And then Wednesday, Josiah Johnson is going to come on, and so it's going to be a really fun week. We're actually pretty much filled up through next week, so a lot to look into, a lot to watch. And are we boozing? We have late night happy hour.
I've got a
little nip here and there, a little something.
Something.
Yeah. So we'll be back tomorrow. Mike Sando with The Athletic. And Monday, Jason Jones back to the NBA, also from The Athletic. We're just, mining that for all we can. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow. Thanks a lot.
Dank u, Nederland.
They'd love